Sorry, getting my light fixed. Hello again, it's Chris. I'm back working on Redwood. Last time we were trying to connect users with items, and we needed to connect the Netlify Auth with a user model that's in our database that we have control of, because we'll be adding stuff to it. So I've been working on it and figured out a solution. Let's move forwards. So I think I nuked what I had last time. There's this user example up there, but we can get rid of that. So we're going to create a new model. It's the user model. And we're going to we are going to this is going to be inside our database, so we need an ID, and we're gonna we're not going to use integers. We're gonna use this UID, so default. So they will have an email, and that's going to be unique. And we'll have a name, and we'll make that optional. Question mark at the end to make it optional. And then they're going to have items. We're not going to fill this all in yet. They're going to have an array of items that we can then display. So what's going to happen under the hood is Prism is going to create a many-to-many relationship, because we're going to also have that. We may not need a many-to-many relationship, and we can fix that later. But it's going to create a relationship. What's going on here? Oh, you know what? So items is the relationship on model field. So you have to also create the relationship on here. So we're going to create users, and that's going to be a user, and we're going to define the same reference ID. So now there's no complaints. So basically, this creates a many-to-many relationship. It'll create a table in the database underneath, and sort that out itself. Right, so we've created this, and let's see if our server's running. Yeah, server's running. Looks like it's detected a change in the build. Increased it. Let's see what happens when we play with that. So looks like I'm logged in. No errors. Let's log out. We'll log back in. Log back in. Okay. So, you know what we didn't do? Anytime you make a change to the schema, WES, you need to update the database. So, yeah, that'd help if you were in the right window, wouldn't it? yarn redwood db save. Use 12. So anytime I'm doing this, you need to be on node version 12. All right, saved, and put it up. Did I do that in the reverse order? Yarn db. Let's go to the docs. I could see it in the CLI commands, but let's get dynamic. Yarn redwood db save. Okay. So I was working on this earlier. This may be from me working on this earlier. So it may already have that migration up in the tutorial. So I'm gonna continue and see if it becomes a problem. Hope not. So let's see. I guess we can check the GraphQL. So let's go back over here. So that's the database. I think the GraphQL is 8911 at \GraphQL. Okay, looks like we're, oh, it's got some stuff in here. Let's just delete some of this stuff. Okay, look, I've got beer, IPAs, and milk in database. We can update that to show the ID as well. And you can see that's the integer ID. So we added users. Oh, you know what? Added users, but we don't have anything to actually add the user. So I did a bit of searching, and I found this bit about monitoring the tying into the user authentication. And basically what this does is whenever you call get user, which is going to call get user after you log in, it's going to search to see if there is a user and then return that. If there isn't, it's going to create a user, which is already which is in that database model. So name and email. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow Rob's example here. This is very basic. There's a lot more you can add to this, but this is a simple solution for us to at least get something that we can add information to. So let's do this. So we're gonna close that. So we've added the model to this schema. Let's open auth. All right, currently there is a get user and it returns decoded with tokens and stuff. We could actually use that later maybe if we need to, but we're not going to use it for this. So let's comment that out. And it looks like the first thing we need to do is import the database. Okay. And then we need to recreate the get current user. How about I copy and paste this and we'll just go over the code. All right. So let's look at all the uses of get current user. So currently it's finding it in auth, which is which file we're in, but then the only other one that is finding it in is GraphQL. So it looks like this passes the current user off through GraphQL in case we need it later. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna check on get current user. We're gonna try to find it in our local database or in our database. If it's not there, then we need to create the user, in which case that's going to return to the user and then return the user from that function. So create is basically just going to ferry this information along. Going to just copy email and name over. So with that, I think we need to log in and log out, and that should create a user in our database. So let's go to the app. We're going to log out. We're going to log back in. Okay, I'm logged back in. So that should have created a user in the database. Let's refresh our playground. Okay, so again we have the grocery items. So we should, let's look at this schema. Inside item, date. Okay, let's just try. So I'm going to nuke all this to show you what GraphQL can do. So items, you see how with items it comes up and then it's kind of like autofill stuff. Name, ID, published. Okay, so those are all, that's all the information on that. These should all be true. The default was true. So we're going to look at users. Wait, users isn't here. Huh. You know what? We forgot another step. All right. So we created, let me switch over to the editor. So that should have created a user. I think it did. But we haven't created access to that. We haven't connected the users so it shows up in the GraphQL database. So that showed up in the GraphQL layer. So let's exit out of that. and bring up our terminal. So Redwood has dynamic. I think it's in this one. So this mentions the CLI command SDL, and the SDL is what connects. It helps create the queries and the mutations available to GraphQL. So we're going to run this on user. So we'll copy that over. We don't have contact in there. Run that on user. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it looks like it's created a users.sdl.js test on it, and then it's created a services. So let's look at the SDL first. Users SDL. All right, so we've got a type of user in the schema. Query with users can return all, and then create an update on it. And then let's look at the services. So that's that user that's available, and then users finds many on it, and user finds so it finds the items on it as well. So it returns the object with the items on it as well. Sorry, been up since 5 a.m. Okay. So let's go back to the GraphQL and see if that has made a difference. Okay, users doesn't show up. Let's refresh it. Users shows up now. Okay. So let's see. What do we have? Email, name, ID, and we should have items. And items have a name, ID, and it published. Okay, let's see what comes back. All right. So it looks like we never set up a way for me to set up a name, but it should have taken the email address, which it did. This is an ID for the local server, and we never connected a way to search for items. So what we've got is we've got a way to connect users from Netlify Auth. Let's see. Whenever they sign in for the first time, it's going to create them as a user in our database, and then name and email. Yeah, and a user who's never done anything on our site before won't have any items yet. So we've connected that, and then we've exposed the local or the non-Netlify Auth version of users. So we have access to that for doing what we want with it. So I think the next piece, why don't we commit those, add db users, and that's committed. If you want to have a look at it, GitHub CSLS CSELLIS /grocery, I believe, is the app, or is the address. Right. So let's look at the app. How about that? Okay, so that's the GraphQL for it. Refresh. Here we go. We're logged in. We have access to the user. Ideally, what we want is we want to be able to search in here for items and then them pop down below so we can search for them. And we've already got some items in the database. So what we need is we need to be able to search for those items by name. So we can go about this two different ways. We can go from the interface, create the interface first, or we can go from the data first. Kind of not sure which is the best way to demonstrate it. So the search would be sort of an items by name search, because we're going to be searching for the name of the item, and we'll be presented with options. Let me show you how it works in my other application. So you search like this and it shows different items that you can select. And looks like we never categorized pizza. Frozen foods. I need a duplicate. I actually got this. Actually got the pizza already. That's what I got last night. So let's start with the search first, and then we can look at it in GraphQL and at least search through some of the pieces. So we need to do an item search by name, which means that we'll need to take the name into the API. So I think what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to edit that service, the item service, and the service on, or the SDL. So let's do the items service first. So let's see what we have in here already. You've got items, so if you wanted to search and find all of the items, do it with that. A specific item with the ID. It's going to be very similar to this search, but instead of the ID, we're going to be searching the name. So you know what we could do? We could copy this. We're going to export, let's see, item by name, and we're going to have the name, we'll present the name to it, where, okay, so the ID is going to be an exact match of it, but we don't want to look for an exact match, because sometimes people capitalize. When you're searching, most of the time people don't. So let's look at what Prisma offers for filtering. Find many filter. Let's see what's available. I like the look of this contains. So it would be something like, let's delete that, where name what's the syntax on it? Okay, so the where condition, which property you're checking on, starts with, but we're going to say name contains name. Okay, so this name is not the same as this one. This is the name inside the database, and this is the variable name, which is right here. So if that makes sense, the next thing we need to do is go to the SDL. So let's see, what was it? Items. So this is where GraphQL connects and publishes the information. So this allows us to be available via the GraphQL server. So what we're going to do is we need to update the query. So this function, items by name, we want that to be plural because it's going to provide more than, ooh, good catch, Chris. So this is going to be find many. So we want that to find more than one. Otherwise, it was going to return the first item that it found. And I don't think it sorted, so it would have been a random item. So find many items. And that's what's going to be right here. It is connected over somehow through the magic. So item, you know what? Let's put that. So that's a single item. This is plural, items by name. So let's keep that by the name. So it's going to require a string, and then it will return an array of items, maybe. You could see the double exclamation points inside and outside the bracket says maybe. So let's go to GraphQL and see if this worked. Probably didn't work. Let's see if it worked. Okay. So the server stopped. Nope, server's still going. Let's refresh the page. Okay, items by name is available. So we're gonna need to select it on a name. happens when we select nothing? Okay, so that returns everything, all the items. So this is working. What happens when we, let's say, common letter between the three of them, or between two of them, but not the third. Okay, so I and I. Oh, and that's good because they're in different cases. So let's see what happens when we do I. Well, I hope if you click the right button, Chris. Okay, so yeah, that then returned only 2. So it's non-case sensitive because what we're doing is using the contains. I'm not sure how scalable this is, but look, we're just connecting this together. This is just a small app. Don't worry about it. It doesn't need to be scalable. Not yet. Okay. So we've created the ability to find items by name with a variable. That's awesome. Next, we need to link that into the application. So we need to create some sort of component, or, well, it will also have to include a cell. So the Redwood way of looking at stuff is through cells. And that's anything that requires data fetching in a declarative manner. So we're going to need to create a cell, and let's move the form over first. So currently this form is in the layout, and I think it would probably be better if that form was its own component so we can encapsulate the logic within that component. So let's save where we are. I'm just committing to master. Don't judge me. All right. So let's close these down. And let's go over to the layout because that's where it's at. Find the form. All right. Let's rip it all out. Haven't saved yet. Say hello if you've just joined the chat. We need to generate. Let's generate a component first for the form. So yarn redwood generate component. You can see I've already written this before. Let's generate a search bar. So let's see what Redwood does. It creates the search bar, stories, and tests. Let's go to search bar. So here's the search bar. Let's drop our form in. Just leave it inside these divs. You know what? Let's take the divs out because there's formatting from Tailwind on the form. So then let's put the search bar. Okay, this should look exactly the same. Yes, it does. So, this is now a separate component. let's start handling state on it. That way we have something to send to the GraphQL query. So the idea is that search bar is going to handle all that. It's pretty basic. Import. You can come in. Hey. Sorry, my dog. Quiet, Bailey. All right. So we're going to import useState, and we need to. So we need to take the input from here and apply it to state. So const query. So set the query to an empty string. Set the value equal to query, and on change handler equal to handle change. Const handle change. Set query. You know what we'll do? Well, you know what? The query should change as we do it. So let's check and make sure that we can update the value. Yes, the value is being updated. All right. So form submit, post is more secure. Let's go ahead and have a form submit handler, just because we need to prevent default on it. We'll eventually be using this handle submit later. And we'll console log the query. Query is let's see what happens when we do that. So bananas. The query is bananas. So we've handled the front end aspect of it. Now we need to tie it with GraphQL. But the data doesn't necessarily need to be shown in this part of the application. The way I see it is there could be a cell where query is being passed down below it. So looks like David Threeson is messaging in the Discord channel about a different way to handle this. So to give some background, I did some research on this morning. It seems like the community is pretty split on how to handle this. I'm showing one way to do it. There are plenty of ways to do this. This is just one way. So I'm going to continue this way, and then we can look at another ways. I can maybe show both ways. So now let's create the cell. So maybe we still do need to encapsulate this. So we'll add the cell below this and pass the query down to the cell. But first we need to create the cell. So we're going to do yarn redwood generate cell item search. This is going to create a lot. So, well, not that much. So basically I've just encapsulated the form in a div. It's technically encapsulation, it's not much of an encapsulation. Item search. I don't want item cell search stories. Reason my editor always chooses to do that. So all right, so this is the item search cell shown below, but we've got a 400 error. So let's go on over to item search cell. Huh, because this query doesn't do anything. It's a good reason to have an error. So, can't really look for item search. What? So we basically need to search for this items by name, and we'll search for this I to begin with. We'll have it fixed to begin with, and we'll figure out how to connect this over. So items by name, and all right, can't resolve. Module not found. Can't resolve items, services, items. Module not found. Can't resolve auth and items. I think that's. Look at that. That's my editor trying to help me. Okay, look at that. This looks really freaking ugly, but it's coming back with those 2 items. Look at that. I'm proud of how ugly that looks. Okay, so that means let's make that pretty at least. Right, so we've got search bar displaying the search cell, but you know what it's not doing? It's not passing the query down. So let's pass the query down as name. And how does this work? Right, so what we need to do is we need to make the GraphQL search for the we need to have it take a variable from the component. So basically the search bar is going to send its query down to the item search cell. Item search cell is going to take that into the GraphQL function, search that on the database, return the data, and then present it as the success statement. So I'm trying to remember how I did that. So first let's put a variable on the query. Call that name, string, and required. And then we will pass that down into here. Is that it? That can't be it. Oh, wait, showing more than one? Beer. Empty. Ear. Beer. Whoa. Look. It's fugly, but it is a search suggest. This is a search suggest. So okay, so we can, let's style this quickly. Let's save this first. So let's see, let's review what we did. We created a search bar, pulled the form out from the layout to the search bar, and then, created a search cell which is connected with the data coming from the input on the search bar. So here's where we need to build. Okay, so let's save this. Pull out form to component. Okay, so let's close layout items, and let's start figuring out how we want to style this. So close the side. Oops. Okay, we'll start looking at that. So let's return a div, and in that div, let's map over the items by name. And return we'll do this as refs or anchor tags right now. They'll need keys. Item ID and turn the item name. Let's see what that comes back as. An error. Where that stray B came from. Okay, so they're all right here. They're all smushed together. So let's save them on block. Okay. They're stretched down now. Let's wrap their container. And let's do a background white and a shadow extra large. Okay, they're smushed up on the side though. Let's round it. Okay, looking good. They're smushed up on the side. So let's give them some padding. 4. See what that looks like. Spread out a bit too much. Okay. Just indication which one you're over though. So let's do a hover Brown indigo. Do 700. Okay, so now we know which one we're over. But let's make the text white. There we go. It's looking pretty good. So I don't know if you noticed this, but when you get to the bottom, you see the rounded corners? I think let's overflow. Nope. I'll look into that later. Okay, it looks like it's all smushed up into this corner up there. So let's make this absolute. Okay. Still sort of smushed up there. Let's drop that down and we'll move it left, or move it from the left. That's oddly spaced. Okay, so I have to figure out why that's off. But we need a width on it as well. A lot of this stuff is preference. Okay. So let's not send anything down if the query is empty. So what we'll do is we'll tie this to the length of the query. I don't know if I could type. So nothing there. IPAs. Beer. Okay. So that is searching the database for any items. These are canonical items, and creating search results when the query is greater than 0. So look, see that right there? Let's apply some styles to this as well. Class name. Okay, so let's at least made it so the search form behind's working, but now this has jumped in the way. Okay. All right. So I think that's a good stopping point. We've connected the items to users. So we should be able to, in the next one, create user items. So the idea is that when a user clicks on one of these items, it will then be added to their planning, their grocery list. So thank you for, let's commit. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.